The metallic hiss of the shuttle doors opening cut through the oppressive silence of the alien canyon. Captain Ryen stepped out first, boots crunching over the blackened, jagged soil, eyes scanning the horizon with precise calculation. Behind him, Sergeant Kael followed, his massive frame moving with deliberate caution, while Dr. Arvo lingered near the rear, data pad clutched tightly, recording every subtle anomaly. The air was thick with the scent of sulfur and ionized minerals, a warning to any creature that might call this desolate place home. Ryan's hand hovered over the pulse rifle strapped to his chest, though he had no intention of firing without reason. "Keep your senses sharp," he muttered, his voice carrying both command and caution. Kael grunted, scanning the shadowed ridges, muscles coiled like springs. Arvo's eyes darted across the readings streaming from his sensors. Something large had passed through here recently, footprints far too vast for any known native species. A sudden rustle echoed from a nearby cliffside. The three men froze, instinct sharpening their reflexes. The ground trembled faintly, rhythmic and deliberate. Out of the shadows emerged a massive silhouette, limbs rippling with powerful musculature. Grak, the war beast, sniffed the air as he stepped forward, each movement deliberate, each motion radiating intelligence rather than mindless aggression. His eyes, sharp and calculating, locked onto Ryen. The creature's head tilted slightly, nostrils flaring as it moved closer, sniffing at the uneven terrain. It was evaluating, not attacking, yet the underlying tension was palpable. Kael shifted his weight, fingers brushing against the rifle. Ryan's hand shot out, halting him. "Let it approach," he said firmly. "We don't provoke what we don't understand." Grak circled them, sniffing each man in turn. When he reached Kael, his massive head lowered, sniffing thoroughly, analyzing the human scent, his posture unwavering and imposing. Kael remained still, muscles tense, pride and caution warring for dominance. Grak moved on to Arvo, whose hands shook slightly despite his efforts to appear composed. Then, finally, Grak returned to Ryen, letting out a low, vibrating growl that reverberated in the canyon walls. The sound was neither a threat nor a greeting. It was a measure, a silent judgment of the humans before him. Arvo whispered, He's studying us. It's not hunting, not yet." His voice trembled slightly, betraying both awe and fear. Ryen nodded, his eyes never leaving Grak. "It's testing us," he said softly. "We've entered its territory, and it's deciding whether we're prey or something else." Time seemed to stretch. Grak crouched slightly, muscles coiled like a spring, and yet, instead of striking, he sat heavily on the scorched ground, directly facing Ryen. The decision was clear. The war beast was asserting dominance, but also curiosity. Kael exhaled slowly, tension in his shoulders easing just a fraction, while Arvo's fingers continued scanning, recording, trying to interpret the creature's intent. The canyon remained silent except for the faint hissing of the shuttle's cooling vents and the soft, deliberate breathing of the alien predator. Ryen stepped forward slightly, making no sudden movements, letting his presence communicate calm authority. Grak's head tilted again, nostrils flaring, ears flicking toward the humans in careful observation. "Captain," Arvo murmured, voice barely audible. "It recognizes leadership. It's assessing who here commands the others." Ryan's gaze swept over his team, Kael, unwavering and solid, Arvo, analytical and cautious, and then returned to Grak. "Then it sees me," he said simply. His jaw tightened, not with fear, but with a measured resolve. The humans had entered an alien domain with predators far superior in raw strength, but they carried with them ingenuity, calm courage, and adaptability, the traits that had defined humanity for millennia. Grak sniffed again, rising slightly to his feet, though his posture remained composed, almost regal. The creature's golden eyes lingered on Ryen, as if weighing the balance of risk and respect. Then, without warning, he sat again, head lowered slightly in what could only be interpreted as acknowledgement, a silent truce, a recognition of the human who dared to meet him without faltering. Kael exhaled audibly this time, the sound cutting the tension like a blade. "So, it respects you," he said, a hint of disbelief in his voice. Ryen did not respond immediately. Instead, he maintained eye contact with Grak, reading every twitch of muscle, every subtle flick of the tail. The canyons seemed to shrink around them, the weight of mutual scrutiny pressing down. Then Ryen lowered his hand slowly from the rifle, the gesture deliberate, showing neither fear nor aggression. The warbeast remained seated, calm but vigilant, a silent sentinel observing the humans he had chosen to study. Arvo's hand hovered over the data pad, hesitant to break the moment with unnecessary commentary. Finally, he spoke, voice barely a whisper. This is unprecedented. He's sitting in front of us willingly." Ryen allowed himself the smallest of nods. "Then we watch. We learn. And we survive." He glanced at Kael and Arvo, seeing both tension and the spark of exhilaration that comes when standing on the edge of the unknown. Grak's golden eyes never wavered. The warbeast sniffed the air one last time, head tilting as if committing the human scent to memory. Then he lowered his head again, ears flicking, body relaxed but alert, a predator who had chosen observation over attack. The humans remained motionless, absorbing the significance of this interaction, the silent acknowledgement of mutual intelligence and respect. The canyon held its breath with them, a moment frozen between two species, two instincts, and the faint hum of destiny threading through the tension. Ryen knew that this encounter would define the course of everything to come. They were no longer just humans in hostile terrain, they were observed, assessed, and, in some strange, alien way, respected. And as Grak sat before him, calm and commanding, Ryen understood that the challenge ahead would not merely be survival, but mastery of the relationship between predator and human. The warbeast had chosen to watch. The humans would have to rise to meet him. The canyon walls shivered under the distant echoes of movement. Grak's pack had begun to emerge from the shadows, a procession of sinewy forms that slithered and padded with a terrifying grace. Lieutenant Grak led them, a jagged silhouette against the dim light, eyes glinting with both hunger and suspicion. The humans stood their ground, weapons at the ready but lowered enough to show restraint. Captain Ryan's gaze never left the alpha of the pack. Every instinct in his body screamed caution, yet his mind calculated patterns, anticipating the creature's next move. Kael shifted his stance slightly, scanning the edges of the ravine. "They're testing us," he muttered. His voice was low but steady, carrying a mix of defiance and curiosity. "It's not just Grak anymore. They're all watching, seeing if we can handle pressure." Dr. Arvo adjusted his sensor array, its faint hum the only sound beside the occasional click of shifting talons on rock. "Observational aggression," he said quietly. "The pack follows the alpha's lead. If Grak tolerates us, they will hesitate. But any misstep could trigger an immediate strike." Grak stepped forward, nostrils flaring, and the other warbeasts paused, waiting. The alpha circled the humans slowly, each step deliberate, a predator measuring not only strength but resolve. His eyes lingered on Ryen, then flicked toward Kael and Arvo, as if evaluating their cohesion as a unit. Ryen raised a hand slightly, a subtle signal that conveyed calm authority without threat. The gesture caused Grak to pause, head tilting in recognition. Lieutenant Grak snarled softly, a warning rumble that rippled through the pack. A few of the younger warbeasts stepped closer, teeth glinting under the dim light. Ryan's hand remained steady, his eyes locking with Grak's. "Let them approach," he said calmly. "We don't retreat. We observe. We adapt." Kael's fingers brushed the rifle, itching for action, but he obeyed. Slowly, the first of the scouts edged forward, muscles taut, claws scraping the jagged rocks. Ryen stepped slightly to the side, allowing the path to remain clear while his mind raced. He studied their movements, noting the subtle cues of their hierarchy, a twitch of the tail, a lowering of the head, a subtle shift in stance. Humans had long relied on reading body language, and he applied it now with precision. A scout lunged suddenly, testing reflexes. Kael caught the motion instinctively, sidestepping and deflecting with the rifles, but Arvo tripped slightly but recovered, raising a small device that emitted a high-frequency pulse. The sound made the scout hesitate, ears flicking, muscles tensing in discomfort. Grak's low growl resonated through the canyon, a clear reprimand. The scout froze, obedient once more. Ryen's lips curved slightly. The test had begun, and humans were already proving adaptable. They learn quickly, Kael observed, almost in awe. But so do we. Dr. Arvo moved closer to Ryen, whispering, Grak's intelligence is unprecedented. He controls this pack through observation and subtle cues, not sheer force. If we match that, we have a chance. Ryen nodded, eyes never leaving the alpha. We will. But first, we must show them we can anticipate, not just react. He crouched slightly, demonstrating balance and readiness, a posture the pack seemed to respect. Grak sniffed again, circling Ryen and pausing to watch. Then, with a sudden burst, a second scout approached, faster and more aggressive. Kael reacted immediately, setting a controlled trap by kicking a rock into the canyon's center. The scout skidded, stopping just short of collision, its momentum checked without harm. The action was both a defensive measure and a demonstration of tactical ingenuity. Grak's ears flicked, eyes narrowing, recognizing not aggression but intelligence. The alpha sat back, observing the humans' coordination, signaling tacit approval to the pack. Minutes stretched like hours as humans and warbeasts danced in a silent game of strategy. Every movement had weight, every pause significance. The humans adapted, improvising with the terrain, showing problem-solving that no creature, not even Grak's elite scouts, could anticipate. Each minor victory built confidence. Each hesitation by the pack was noted and recorded by Arvo. Kael exhaled, muscles relaxing fractionally. They're respecting us. Can you feel it? Ryen allowed himself a small nod. Respect isn't given. It's earned. And we're earning it with observation, precision, and patience. He glanced at Arvo, who was visibly exhilarated despite the tension. Stay sharp. They'll test us again. Harder this time. Grak rose slightly, head high, a clear signal to the pack. Lieutenant Grak growled, but his authority faltered under the alpha's unspoken command. The younger warbeasts began to withdraw subtly, retreating a few paces while keeping the humans in sight. The pack's dynamic was clear. Grak had the final say. Ryen stepped forward, cautiously closing the distance to the alpha. We are not your enemies, he said, voice calm but firm, conveying intent without challenge. Grak's eyes flicked to him, nostrils flaring, tail twitching in measured acknowledgement. The warbeast lowered himself slightly, maintaining a regal posture that suggested acceptance rather than submission. Arvo's hand hovered over the data pad, almost afraid to break the delicate equilibrium. It's like he's recognizing leadership. Not just dominance, but decision-making, problem-solving strategy, he murmured. Kael grinned faintly, tension melting into excitement. Well, if that's respect, I'll take it. The canyons seemed to settle around them. The pack lingered, alert but restrained, with Grak remaining the clear focus. Humans had survived the first trial, not through brute force, but through coordination, intelligence, and calm composure. The alpha had tested, measured, and made a preliminary judgment. Ryen glanced at his team, sensing the same realization dawning on all of them. The warbeast did not merely hunt. It evaluated, adapted, and respected cunning. Here, in this alien wilderness, the humans had demonstrated qualities that even the fiercest predator could not ignore. As Grak settled back onto his haunches, eyes still locked with Ryen's, the canyon held its breath. The humans were not just intruders, they were worthy adversaries, clever enough to earn acknowledgement, patient enough to survive, and perceptive enough to adapt. The real trials, Ryen knew, were only beginning. And in that suspended moment, amid tension and mutual assessment, it was clear. The humans had passed the first test of the pack, and Grak had chosen to observe rather than attack, signaling the first fragile bridge between predator and human intellect. The sun dipped low, casting jagged shadows across the canyon floor, and the air seemed to hum with anticipation. Captain Ryen crouched behind a ridge, surveying the pack's movements with keen attention. Grak remained at the center, seated with an almost statuesque composure, while Lieutenant Drak prowled at the edges, restless and defiant. Kael adjusted his grip on the pulse rifle, scanning the terrain for subtle shifts in the alien scouts' positions, while Dr. Arvo crouched beside him, tinkering with a small device that emitted a faint, rhythmic pulse. "This frequency," Arvo whispered, "it mimics the pack's pheromonal signals. Subtle, but recognizable. It's a non-aggressive communication, like a gesture of respect." Ryen nodded, his mind racing. "We need to demonstrate coordination, not dominance. They respect intellect, not force." He stepped forward slightly, palms visible, a gesture meant to convey intent without threat. Grak's eyes followed him, amber orbs narrowing in curiosity. The alpha shifted, tail flicking once, almost impatiently, yet he remained seated. Drak's impatience escalated. With a sudden roar, he lunged toward a narrow pass, testing the human's reactions. The scouts mirrored his aggression, fanning out as if to encircle the humans. Kael reacted instinctively, kicking loose rocks to create barriers, forcing the pack to slow and navigate around the obstacles. Arvo activated his device, releasing pulses that disoriented the scouts slightly without harm, causing them to hesitate. Ryen seized the moment, stepping into the center of the engagement. "Predict, anticipate, adapt," he muttered, his voice carrying a cadence of command that both humans and aliens seemed to recognize. He studied the pack's coordination, noting how Grak subtly directed movements with tail flicks and head tilts. With a calculated shift, Ryen directed Kael to pivot and create a temporary channel, funneling the scouts into a controlled path. The aliens hesitated, sensing both the humans' ingenuity and the authority emanating from Grak. The Alpha's eyes flicked to Ryen, and for the first time, the humans felt something beyond observation, acknowledgement. Drak snarled in frustration, signaling a challenge, but the Alpha's low growl halted him, a reminder that ultimate authority rested elsewhere. Arvo's device continued to pulse, a steady rhythm that subtly communicated non-threat and comprehension. One of the younger scouts approached cautiously, testing the human's resolve once more. Kael blocked instinctive aggression, lowering his stance while maintaining readiness. The scout's forward momentum slowed, then halted entirely, tail flicking in uncertain respect. Ryen allowed a brief nod, a signal of recognition that seemed to translate across species. Grak tilted his head, nostrils flaring, sniffing the human's combined scent and the emitted pulses. The Alpha stepped forward, sniffing at Ryen directly, a deliberate inspection of intent and leadership. Kael and Arvo watched silently, understanding that the moment was not just survival, but mutual assessment of intellect and adaptability. Minutes passed in a tense ballet of strategy and observation. Each movement had weight, each decision a statement. The humans improvised, using terrain, calculated diversions, and synchronized positioning to demonstrate not brute strength, but superior problem-solving. Drak's aggression waned as the Alpha subtly corrected his positioning, reaffirming the human's indirect authority in this delicate hierarchy. Ryen crouched slightly, shifting his weight with precision, showing balance and readiness. Grak's amber eyes followed each motion, the tail twitching once with approval. The Alpha had begun to recognize patterns. Humans did not merely react, they anticipated, adapted, and coordinated with methodical clarity. Kael exhaled, muscles relaxing as he processed the subtle cues. "It's learning from us," he said, disbelief mingled with exhilaration. "Not just observing, understanding." Arvo's eyes sparkled behind his goggles. "And we're learning from it. The Alpha's control is through subtle signals, coordination, and respect. If we can mirror that, we're no longer prey, we're partners, at least in understanding." Ryen's jaw tightened, determination settling in. "We need to show them we can lead collectively, not just survive individually. Grak respects intellect, Kael's strength, and your ingenuity, Arvo. Together, we're a unit they cannot easily dismiss." He gestured toward a narrow ridge, an implicit command. Kael moved to the left, Arvo to the right, and Ryen advanced to the center, a formation that conveyed both openness and tactical control. The Alpha rose, muscles rippling under taut skin, and stepped toward the humans, nostrils flaring as he sniffed the arranged trio. The pack remained vigilant, yet restrained, sensing the shift in dynamics. Drak's growl echoed, questioning authority, but Grak's eyes locked on Ryen, and the subordinate snarled, retreating slightly. Ryen extended a hand slowly, an instinctive gesture of calculated engagement. Grak paused, then leaned forward, pressing his massive snout gently against the extended hand. Kael and Arvo exchanged glances, realizing this was the first true gesture of mutual recognition. The Alpha had assessed not just survival capability but intelligence, restraint, and leadership. The pack mirrored the subtle acknowledgement, maintaining distance but displaying readiness to observe further. Drak remained wary, yet even he hesitated in defiance, aware of Grak's unspoken approval of the human's strategic demonstration. Ryen allowed a small, controlled smile. "We're not just surviving," he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. "We're earning respect." Arvo's fingers hovered over his data pad, recording every nuance, but even his analytical mind faltered in awe at the complexity of the interaction. "They recognize us as more than intruders. We're being assessed as thinkers, problem-solvers, leaders." Kael's shoulders relaxed, though his vigilance remained intact. "Respect from a predator doesn't come easily," he said, "especially one that could shred us without warning." The canyon seemed to hold its breath with them. The tension had not evaporated. It had transformed into a fragile equilibrium, a delicate acknowledgement of mutual intelligence. Grak lowered himself to a seated position once more, tail flicking with deliberate calm, eyes fixed on Ryen. The humans remained motionless, understanding the significance. They had passed another trial, demonstrating strategy and leadership rather than raw force. Ryen finally exhaled, allowing himself a momentary release of tension. "We learn, adapt, and survive," he said quietly. "And perhaps, just perhaps, we begin to build something more than mere coexistence." Grak's eyes lingered on him, a silent affirmation that the Alpha's judgment was made. The humans had proven their worth, not by weaponry alone, but through intellect, patience, and coordinated adaptability. Drak's subordinate scowls could not erase the clear message. The humans were no longer simple prey. They were recognized challengers, worthy of observation and cautious respect. And as the canyon swallowed the fading light, the humans stood together, poised and alert, aware that the true measure of alliance and survival had only just begun. The next trials would test not only skill but leadership, cunning, and the bond forming between predator and human intellect. The dawn broke over the jagged canyon, light spilling across the blackened ridges like molten silver. Captain Ryen stood at the forefront, Kael flanking him, and Dr. Arvo close behind, every muscle taut with anticipation. Grak rose from his seated position, towering, his amber eyes fixed on Ryen with an intensity that seemed to pierce thought itself. The pack stirred behind him, a ripple of muscle and sinew, ready but restrained. Lieutenant Drak prowled at the edges, his snarl a constant reminder of unresolved tension. "Today, we define the balance," Ryen murmured, voice calm but resolute. "Not with brute force, but with precision, strategy, and unity." He studied the canyon floor, noting every crevice, every shadow, every potential advantage. The humans were not here merely to survive. They were here to demonstrate mastery in a world dominated by creatures bred for killing. Drak lunged suddenly, breaking the fragile equilibrium. Scouts fanned out behind him, teeth bared and claws flexing. Kael reacted instantly, blocking a charge with a well-timed kick, forcing the aggressor into a narrow pass where movement was restricted. Arvo activated his device, releasing subtle pulses that disrupted the scouts' coordination without causing harm. Every motion was calculated. The humans moved as a single entity, anticipating the pack's aggression while maintaining control over their environment. Grak's growl rumbled through the canyon, deep and commanding, halting Drak in mid-strike. The alpha's tail flicked in a measured rhythm, signaling order and discipline. The scouts froze, uncertainty rippling through the pack as they recalibrated under Grak's authority. The humans recognized the signal and advanced in coordinated steps, closing the distance strategically while demonstrating calm control. Kael's pulse rifle hummed as he guided the younger scouts into positions of disadvantage, forcing them to pause or retreat. Dr. Arvo's device continued to emit the steady, non-threatening frequency, mimicking leadership pheromones that subtly communicated understanding and cooperation. Ryen's hand remained low, unthreatening, yet every gesture conveyed command and confidence. Grak snarled again, frustration mounting, but the alpha's piercing gaze held him in check. Grak stepped forward, massive paws moving with deliberate grace, and the scouts followed cautiously, acknowledging the humans' tactical superiority. Ryen recognized the opportunity. Now was the moment to cement their position, not through dominance alone, but through undeniable intelligence. Kael, flank left. Arvo, deploy the pulse at the ridge. I'll advance to the center, Ryen commanded, each word precise, unhurried. The humans moved as one, exploiting terrain and calculated misdirection. The scouts faltered, overestimating aggression and underestimating the humans' ingenuity. Grak hesitated, realizing his subordinate assaults were ineffective against strategy and unity. Grak sniffed the air once, then lowered himself slightly, an unmistakable gesture of approval. The alpha's amber eyes met Ryen's directly, conveying recognition and respect. For the first time, the humans were not merely observers in a predator's domain. They were acknowledged as equals in intellect, courage, and leadership. Ryen allowed a controlled smile. "We've earned this," he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. Kael's shoulders relaxed, a hint of pride in his stance, while Arvo's fingers hovered over the device, recording every subtle cue from the pack. The humans had proven that survival alone was not enough. Mastery required anticipation, adaptability, and unity. Grak let out a low growl, his challenge fading under the weight of the humans' coordinated dominance. Grak's head dipped slightly, the alpha's tail flicking once in a signal that spoke louder than words. The humans had passed the ultimate test, not through force, but by demonstrating leadership, intellect, and calm decisiveness under threat. The canyon walls echoed the silence of resolution. Grak stepped closer to Ryen, head low, eyes unwavering. Then, in a gesture that carried the weight of the pack's hierarchy, the alpha sat beside the human captain, signaling allegiance and acknowledgement. Kael exhaled audibly, the tension in his massive frame giving way to exhilaration. Arvo's hand trembled slightly as he recorded the historic moment. Ryen reached out slowly, allowing Grak to press his snout against the human's extended hand. The gesture was simple yet monumental, a bridge between species, predator and human, founded on mutual respect and recognition. The scouts mirrored the alpha's calm, maintaining watchfulness but no longer threatening aggression. Grak's subordinate scowls did not go unnoticed, yet even he hesitated in defiance, understanding the new hierarchy had been established. The humans stood together, aligned with Grak at their side, a symbol of intelligence triumphing over instinct, strategy prevailing over raw strength. Ryen glanced at Kael and Arvo, feeling the weight of their achievement. "This is more than survival," he said quietly. "We've shown that humanity is capable of leadership, respect, and coordination even in the presence of the most fearsome predators." The canyon seemed to exhale, the tension dissipating into a fragile calm. Grak's amber eyes remained fixed on Ryen, loyalty and acknowledgement entwined in the silent gaze. The humans had not only earned respect, they had secured a position as leaders in a domain where raw strength had previously ruled unchallenged. Ryen turned slightly, surveying the canyon floor, the shadows of scouts moving cautiously behind the alpha. The humans walked forward together, with Grak following, tail flicking once in measured contentment. The lessons of patience, intelligence, and coordinated action had been proven, and the bond forged would endure beyond this confrontation. Kael let out a low whistle, breaking the silence. "We did it. The pack respects us." Arvo nodded, eyes still scanning the Alpha and his scouts. Not just respects. They recognize us as something more. Partners in strategy, if not equals in strength. Ryen exhaled, a sense of calm triumph settling over him. Then we proceed with caution, observation, and readiness. This is only the beginning, but we've shown what it means to be human in the face of the extraordinary. The canyon stretched endlessly before them, shadowed ridges bathed in morning light. Grak's massive frame moved beside the humans, a sentinel and symbol of their hard-earned acknowledgement. They were no longer merely intruders. They were leaders, thinkers, and problem-solvers in a world built for predators. The humans had risen to the challenge, earning their place at the top of this alien hierarchy. And as the dawn fully illuminated the canyon, the team walked forward together, the bond with Grak cemented, prepared for whatever new trials awaited in the vast, untamed wilderness beyond. The warbeast had chosen to follow, signaling respect, recognition, and a shared understanding that humans were not to be underestimated.